Hello and welcome, guys, to the Improvement Season podcast with my man on the other end, Steve Hall, and me, Pascal Floor. And this time, because we touched on it on the last episode already, we are going to talk about longer versus shorter contest preps and the benefits of maybe both of them or the cons of both of them, because my mindset has shifted towards the shorter prep, actually, because over the time span of the last, I would say 3 to 5 years, especially in the natural scene, we heard a lot of individuals talking or promoting longer preps. And I was falling into that, I wouldn't say trap as well, but I think there are some benefits to it. But too many people jump on board it and took it for granted. This is what we are going to talk a little bit about. But first and foremost, of course, as always, we want to touch base on what has happened in the previous week. And Steve, come on, give me a little bit of an update.
Oh dear. I think the main thing is that me and Pascal both want to be training naked was what we just said off air, which is basically because it's so damn hot in Europe. I think it's over 30 degrees right now here. It probably is in Berlin as well.
Yeah, it's 35 degrees. And I mean, in a city like London or Berlin, the heat is just accumulating and not fading away, right? So we are going to the east and north coast, also north coast where I grew up, actually. And in the summertime, it was never boiling hot. And in the wintertime, it was never freezing cold, right? Because of the water and stuff like that. But I mean, here in Berlin, the heat just doesn't fade away. And also last night, I think it was still 28 degrees or something.
So yeah, I guess this is where my life hack can come in, where last night I slept and melted ice cubes over my body, but do have a towel next to you because it gets pretty wet otherwise.
I mean, I have a towel behind me, and I'm sitting on a towel because I just bought a new chair from IKEA yesterday. I went to IKEA yesterday, yeah, and I bought a new chair, and I don't want to sweat it completely and need to kind of wash it or give it back. I don't know.
Actually, oh yeah, even like lying down, even resting one arm on my other arm, I then get like a wet patch underneath. Yeah. I think this is a combination of both of us being like at the peak of our body weight a little bit, and then yeah, the fact that it's just so hot. But we shouldn't complain, really.
No, and I mean, I guess everyone is aware by now that it's boiling hot in Europe, and we don't have to talk about that, I guess.
So apart from the heat, training's been going really well. I can't really complain about how that's all been going. Body weight's been creeping up. I'm now officially kind of in the 190s because I'd hit the 190 pound mark a few times, which was kind of exciting, a bit like, ooh, and now I've actually officially jumped over it. And it seems to be progressing upwards nicely. And I'm still eating around 3,800 calories, which is quite a lot. Protein comes to around like 230, 240. Carbs are at like 550 to 600. And fat is around 60 grams or so. But yeah, I've been kind of enjoying it. But actually, it's really the first month. And I don't know if it's related to the heat. But the first month where I've really not had an appetite, like when a meal time pops around, I'm just like, man, really? And I know Mike had talked about this before with kind of talking about massing phases, and when you get to like your upper end of like your muscle set point or even your fat set point, the body kind of really fights against you, and like you have that peanut butter scale, like how tasty is peanut butter to you? Like when you're really dieted down, it's the best thing ever. When you're kind of maintaining, it's pretty damn good. When you're massing and when you're at your peak mass, it's like, no, thank you. And right now, if you told me I had to eat like 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, I'd be a bit like, fuck, really?
Man, I can relate so much to that. And I mean, you received a package from our buddy, Elias, as well.
Elias.
Protein bars.
Shout
out to Elias, right? And it's so funny because I already mentioned that on the Improvement Season podcast earlier on, but now it's really like that because I've been bulking, maintaining for such a long time, at that current state for such a long time. I had a protein bar yesterday. It was really tasty. It was the white chocolate strawberry, which is my favorite as well. Of what's it called again from the brand?
Barbells.
A really tasty one. But I was still sitting there after the half of the protein bar. I was already like, nah, come on, I would rather have something proper and quote unquote healthy to eat, right? Because it was just like, I don't know, I don't have a sweet tooth anymore for that kind of stuff. It's simply not palatable anymore. It was just crazy. And it was the same thing when I was over in London, when Alki, another shout out to Alki, she always brings us some protein treats each and every seminar. And I had one, I was just like, I actually ate more of them at one time, simply because I had nothing else at my disposal. But it was still something like, no, the comparison to last year is simply not there anymore. And last year, all the protein bars in the world, all the rice cakes in the world were just so palatable to me. And now it's just like, meh.
Yeah, this is where I am with like all my food. So coating like rice and food in like barbecue sauce, sweet chili sauce and stuff, it's required for me to get it down now. And which is actually, I think, really a good place to be when you're at your kind of peak mass, because
absolutely,
I think a lot of people end up going into diet periods where they're actually like not even free of their diet fatigue and they're still feeling kind of hungry a lot of the time. It's like, when you're in a surplus, you really shouldn't be feeling hungry unless you're like coming out of like recently out of a diet or whatever. So yeah, kind of climbing up that hedonic staircase. And even for me as well, like protein bars are not that, like a protein bar would have been something that I'd be like, oh, like I could just about fit that in if I manage this, or maybe, whereas now it's like I kind of need to eat that to make sure I'm getting enough calories in.
I think it's quite funny because now you brought up because of the heat that you don't want to eat that much food as well. And I think actually not just dieting for the summertime as some do, right, to look good on the beach, because I never did that. I never actually looked good. So yeah, that's a different story in and for itself. But I think there's actually a good thing for eating or dieting into the summertime, because in the summer period, you probably only stick with highly palatable foods, because at least in my case, I really don't like to cook when it's boiling hot outside, and I don't like to eat the same meals and dishes which I like to have in the winter time, which is more so, I don't know, hot veggies or freshly cooked veggies and stuff like that. I really dislike that right now, and I'm more so craving ice cream, right? And I mean, when you're on the leaner end and then you're gaining, but you aren't really already super fluffy, where the fluff is already generating so much heat, it might be a good thing that you are looking for that palatable food. You can go out and eat that kind of stuff to actually gain the weight. And you are probably not overeating, because that is inconvenient during that heat as well. So actually it's the perfect timing, and the winter time is actually the perfect timing to then cut, instead of like most other people do, being in a gaining phase.
Yeah, I wonder if there's that element to it, and then obviously it's much more social to be able to have like, I don't know, a pint or like some cider, and you can like have that freely, more so when you're in your off season. Not that either of us really drink. But it's interesting in that obviously people have been, you hear these circadian rhythms and all of this sort of thing a bit more, and you wonder whether the human body's a little bit made up like lots of animals are, in terms of the winter is when they that is when they gorge and they kind of bulk, and then the summer is when they're very active and they're not eating so much. But regardless, that'll probably be another podcast. I don't think either of us really know enough about that sort of thing. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
So how's your week gone? I know you're on holiday next week, so you're pushing it pretty hard.
So I'm really pushing it hard this week, and this is my overreaching week, and it's actually going quite well. I was expecting me to feel really run down, especially because last week I was feeling like I'm overreaching already. But I think it was more so down to the fact of coming from London, the traveling aspect, because I know it from the past, and every single time I'm traveling, I'm just beaten to shit. And this time around was the same, actually. And I thought that maybe I couldn't survive that overreaching week, but now I'm in it and I'm actually feeling good. I think I need to push it harder for the 2 last sessions. So tomorrow is the push session, and on a Saturday I actually delayed my last week a little bit to make it, because we are actually leaving on a Saturday, so that I have my last training session on the Saturday. Then we are driving. It's my lower body day. It's actually not a good idea, because I need to drive as well. Yeah. and it's not an automatic car. It's actually really manually. Maybe it's not the best thing, but anyway, that's the plan for now. Then overreaching and taking a complete week off the gym, which is also the first time for me. And I think we discussed it already last week a little bit, that it's hard for us as well. We've never tried it, but we are promoting it. So I think it's a good thing to actually go out there and try it yourself, so that the things you are preaching, you're doing yourself as well.
The thing is, it's funny because our mentality is a bit flipped to the usual person in that they think, oh, week off is like easy. But in fact, the week off is hard for us, and the overreaching week, that's easy. We can get at it and we enjoy that. So yeah, it's going to be hard to take a whole week off, I reckon, for yourself.
Yeah, and I already told Katie that I'm going to visit one gym simply out of business reasons.
Oh my God, I couldn't get away. Charlotte would not believe me at all. She's like, fucking liar.
But it is kind of. So I was on a podcast of Arne Otte. Right, during this week, Arne Otte was someone who also participated at this seminar, who is from Hamburg, and he was a YouTuber for a longer period of time. And he has a friend called Pascal Su, and he's living now in Flensburg. And Pascal Su was an old YouTuber as well. He opened up a gym there, which is quite funny because my name is Pascal, which isn't that common, at least not in Germany. He's now living in Flensburg. It's the place where I'm coming from, right? And because there's some kind of gym, YouTuber, and I just kind of make it to be that it's beneficial for the business. At least that's my excuse for Katie. I need to get there for beneficial reasons for business, because it might be an opportunity or something. But
so you're getting one session in at least.
Yeah, it's more so just a bad excuse.
And you're in maintenance at the moment, aren't you? So
yes.
Yeah. And then when you're back?
Yeah, it's funny because today I just planned out the next couple of months. And let me just put it up here. I have it here in front of me. Just give me a second, because I was just planning or rescheduling everything, because it changed over the time span of the last couple of months. Also due to the fact that I haven't gone to Australia, thus I needed to change my schedule as well. And my plan is now, when I'm coming back, I will actually enter a cutting phase, which will be 14 weeks long, so a more conservative cut. Cool. The diet before the diet. Then I will go into a maintenance phase where I'm running a 3-to-1 paradigm of hypertrophy block, followed by a primer phase, also in maintenance phase. And then I will actually already start my contest prep.
Nice.
Take it a little bit more slowly, and then just ride along, see how much I need to lose, see how the prep is going, and potentially implement another prolonged break or maintenance phase, such as you did in the last contest prep. And this is the plan for now, but it can always change, right?
Cool. That actually, somehow I've managed to really transition our discussion towards the topic we wanted to talk about anyway, which has been really good. That's how good I am as an interviewer, I just have to say. So yeah, in terms of, I guess, we could start off with maybe the misconceptions, and you kind of alluded to it in that for natural bodybuilding, everyone initially was looking at kind of guys that were on gear and drugs, because this was just all the information there was out there, and they did very short preps. And so then natural bodybuilders attempted these. And I guess as an example, if anyone knows of Jeff Alberts, he kind of did these shorter preps, and he lost, I remember him talking about losing tons of weight in a short period of time. And when we think about realistic rates of fat loss without losing muscle, these would for sure have lost muscle in this short time period. Now it then transitioned to longer preps were superior for natural athletes, because we don't have all these other things that are aiding us to get leaner in time and hold on to our muscle tissue. So then people were like, okay, longer is better. And I think the thing you alluded to was people actually have got a misconception here. It was kind of like the longer prep is longer because it has to be, because people are starting so far away from what their stage weight is. Whereas if you start a bit closer to your stage weight, a shorter prep can very much be appropriate. And that's kind of what you're planning to do, in that you're kind of dieting, getting lean, holding that position, ridding lots of that diet fatigue, letting your body upregulate metabolism and everything, and then dieting again into a show. Whereas a lot of people kind of miss that middle part and they just go diet the whole time. And that's where it becomes a question of, is that superior to doing the phasic, more structured approach? And I think from my own personal experience, in 2014, I dieted from January until November. So it's a very long time. And I was 190 pounds and I got down below 160 and I lost over 30 pounds. And I know from that experience and I had no diet breaks, I had refeeds, versus the one that I just did where I really didn't have to lose that much weight. There was lots of phasic diet breaks. There was maintenance periods within there, and then even a build up of calories towards the end. My physique looked far superior. Obviously, it was going to have looked better anyway because I had more time in my off season between then. But everything was just much easier to manage. I didn't feel like I even went to weddings close to the events. I went on holiday before, like, I digged for shows. I went on holiday to Rome with Charlotte, and it was just so much better. And I think the longer prep just was so hard because I had to lose so much body weight. And I think that's part of the issue is the longer you diet, in terms of a time component, also the aggressiveness is going to increase the amount of diet fatigue that you feel. And so the longer you diet, the more diet fatigue you're going to produce. And so if you don't break it up, if you don't have these phases, you can expect it to be very harsh by the end. And I kind of like the rule of thumb that Renaissance Periodization have kind of thrown out there is, in one go, don't aim to lose more than 10% of your body weight, which for someone at 190 would be like 20 pounds, which I think 20 pounds maybe in 20 weeks for a contest prep, I think that sounds more reasonable than losing 30 pounds. And then that extended my contest prep by loads of time. So I think I kind of summed up some of the approaches. I don't know if you want to dive into some of the pros and cons that you see of shorter versus longer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want this episode to become this is the only best approach, or this is bad because X, Y, and Z. Because I think there's always a component to it to say, okay, a shorter prep might be appropriate for an individual, or a longer prep might be appropriate for an individual. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who've done a shorter prep successfully and felt all right. And the same way goes around as well with people who have prepped for a long period of time and it was fine as well, right? But I think, as with so many other things in life, and especially in the fitness industry, people take it to the extreme levels. Okay, when the short prep is actually bad, then we have to go to the extreme route of the long diet. And I think that the middle ground is, once again, the best way to go about it. As so often, maybe it's not sexy, but I think it's probably the best approach of both worlds, because it's like you said, I mean, when you are when you are too far away from stage and you need to diet aggressively, but you have a short period of time, it will probably be super hard for you and will most likely bite you in the ass afterwards. The other way around holds true as well. When you are prepping for such a long time, you will probably need to recover for a longer period of time as well. And that might potentially only be time wasted and being away and out of the gym of a gaining phase, which you're not doing anymore. Right? When you're prepping like 40 to 60 weeks, and then the additional recovery time afterwards, that's just like close to 2 years of just prepping, for example, right? This can't be beneficial, in my opinion. Thus, I think that maybe setting yourself up in a proper position, I brought up, so when I was on the podcast of Arne, I brought up an analogy of like Formula One drivers. You are not just going on one specific track and you are starting to race. No, there's a day prior to that where it's the qualification for the pole position or your position in the seat, right? And this is something you can do as well. You can actually do the diet before the diet, bring the body fat levels down, let fatigue reduce, let all the negative adaptations actually fade away, put yourself in a better spot to actually then lose muscle, lose the fat effectively once again, and then also that it's not being too harsh on your psychology, but also on your physiology. And you're probably still saving a little bit of time because you don't have to diet for 40 weeks in a row. And then you probably also don't need as much recovery time afterwards.
Yeah, I think something that needs to be clear, something clear for me actually is that wouldn't want people, something I'm very comfortable saying is I don't think starting a contest prep fat is a good idea. And that means fat for you. So in terms of individualization, this is where it comes in that we all have different body fat settling points where our bodies like to be. And some of this is given at birth. Some of this is associated environment and what we're like. And so I think you would want to start a contest prep at your low end of your settling point where you feel comfortable, but you're very lean for you. You don't want to start at the high end of it or above it, because then that's the diet before the diet. You diet down to get to your lower end of your settling point. That's where you maintain for a period of time. And then the digging phase is literally digging below that settling point, because that's the uncomfortable zone. And like we've kind of laid out, we're not saying contest prep is going to be easy. We just think it can be made easier, and you can limit the time that's really horrible, which is that digging period of time where you are below your settling point. And so you limit that as much as possible, because if you have to go from here to all the way down through, it's just going to get progressively harder and harder. Whereas if you have a break, you stabilize, you give yourself a chance. Like you said, you've got your qualification, you've got your pole position. Now you're in a great place to go and win. Whereas if you you start day one and you're just driving throughout the whole time, it's going to be much, much harder, and you're not going to win yourself that pole position. You're going to start in last place, and then you're going to be battling to try and win.
Mm. Absolutely. And I think because you brought up the question about the pros and cons, in my opinion, so the biggest pros and cons when it comes to a shorter prep, the pros are, of course, like the name implies, a shorter amount of prep time, probably with that along as well, a shorter recovery time as well, because when we take that general rule of thumb that you need half the time of the contest prep to recover, then let's say 16 weeks you're prepping, then you only need to recover for 8 weeks after that. Then you are back at the gym and making gains and further improve yourself after kind of 24 weeks. Let's say you're taking a prep that is lasting 40 weeks. In addition to that, 20 weeks of recovery time, maybe in between you are waiting for another show, right? That is a minimum of 60 weeks of prepping time. 60 weeks compared to 24 weeks. I mean, that is quite obvious what is probably a little bit more beneficial. However, on the other hand, you have to be on the leaner end when it comes to a shorter prep time. Thus, you probably can't really push it as hard and much in the off season. That might be a con for some, but for some it might be beneficial, as you already pointed out, with the settling point and the set point as well, where you are performing your best, where you feel comfortable. And for some, when you are feeling good on the leaner end, a shorter prep might definitely be the answer for you to actually go with. However, I also want to note that when it comes to the shorter prep, for some individuals, if you don't set yourself in a good spot before that and you have to aggressively diet down, this can actually have detrimental effects on you afterwards. And even though that you don't need as much of a recovery time, it might be harder for you then with things like binges or the hunger signaling, because you needed to push it a little bit harder. But the same argument you could actually make with a prolonged period or in a contest prep setting, simply because you are in a deficit and in a deprived state for 40 weeks or something, which of course has its toll on the system and might be and lead to you having a harder time afterwards as well. So you can always kind of bring up the arguments of pro and against something, because I think it's always a little bit context dependent as well. But this is also why we are saying maybe take the middle ground of not taking the aggressive and short approach, but a less aggressive but short approach, if that makes sense, right? And this is only achieved when you are preparing for that over a long period of time, setting yourself up in a good position, and then you can still have a productive off season where you might be the individual who needs to push up that body fat set point a little bit higher because it's up there where you are feeling good. And then you need to diet down, set yourself in that kind of pole position to then dig for the last couple of weeks and then be ready for the show.
Yeah, I think the key points to just all of this is that when you are doing like the shorter show prep, you're not suggesting losing at the same rate as what you would at the start of a longer prep. You actually lose at the appropriate rate for the percentage of body fat you are. So whereas you might have lost at like 1 to 2% at the start of a long prep when you're like, 18% body fat. Whereas for this shorter prep, when you're closer to 10%, you're looking to lose like 0.5% per week. And so that's that can be tougher just psychologically knowing that you've got like it's a smaller window, so you can't really fuck up. Whereas like the longer prep, some people might find that more kind of comforting and easier to know that you've got that time. And I just think it's just that maintenance period before you start to dig can be quite hard for some people psychologically, where you kind of, okay, maybe in your off season, you went up to your higher point of your settling point, which might be like 18% body fat. You physically come down to like 12% body fat. And when you're there, then taking that break, I think that can make it quite hard for some people where they're just like, but I'm that close to like I could keep dieting. Yeah. It's like, just take some time to have a breather because you're going to be ready too early, or you might just not even get there because you've got so much diet fatigue and we have to push inappropriately hard to get you to this next point.
That brought up a thought I had just now, and that is, let's just say theoretically something is happening to you and you already prepped for like 35 weeks and then you're getting injured. Then you actually prep for 35 weeks and it was kind of a waste of time, right? And if you are prepping for only 60 weeks and 5 weeks out from a show, you're getting injured, probably it wasn't that bad of a deal because you didn't really put that much into it already. You didn't really put that much time into it already, right? It's like going into a casino and you have 100,000 to your disposal, right? Once you achieve or are beyond a certain threshold, you're probably willing to then invest all of your money because you already invested that much. Now you can't really pull out of it anymore, right? And it's the same feeling when you then have to pull out. It's probably like really, really disheartening and could potentially be even more psychologically demanding on you. Well, that was only a thought that came up now. Maybe I'm missing something here.
No, I guess it's similar for yourself in that you weren't stage ready when you had to pull the plug. Like you were still having to lose a fair amount of weight, but you'd already invested so many weeks upon weeks upon weeks on this one goal that then it just made it so much harder. And then you still had a bit of recovery time afterwards, even though you weren't stage lean, just because all of that diet fatigue had built up over that period of time. And I think whilst that was a horrible experience to go through, it taught you a lot. And
that's for sure.
I think a lot of the downsides of that longer prep were felt within your kind of prep then, and a lot of the upsides were felt within my prep of having a shorter one. And now I still think I could do it better, and I still think you can manage it better. But I think the thought of individualizing to settling points and set points, but trying to make a prep as short as appropriate so you can start when you're kind of lean for you is going to be an overwhelming success. And that isn't taking out kind of use, because people will argue, oh, longer preps, you can put in diet breaks and things like this. You can still include those in a shorter prep. They can still happen. It doesn't mean that they don't happen. And you can still put in refeeds. You can still practice peak weeks and everything like that. It's just you don't have the big chunk beforehand. You've kind of done that. Like you said, you've qualified. So then you're holding and then you're going. I think... Yeah, I just think it makes everything more knowable as well when you try and diet for that long, and you just have to end up pushing things inappropriately hard. The body's less responsive. The adaptive resistance mechanisms that every single biological system have built up over time, whereas the body, I think, would just be so much more responsive when you have allowed it to settle. And I think the key is allowing it to settle long enough, because it can be quite hard. And that takes longer term periodization of your whole prep, because I think a lot of people end up doing kind of what Jared and Mike talked about in their presentations at the weekend, which are still available for pre-order, where people end up kind of, they have their off-season weight and then they start prep and they like hit their off-season weight, stay there, and then they do prep. And it's like, what? Like, where's this phasic approach that you're actually going to end up gaining some lean tissue and like losing fat and like actually moving? And I think that systematic approach, the body actually just adapts. And if you don't actually force it to adapt in another direction, it just stays the same, or it gets worse because you're just basically doing yo-yo contest prep dieting. It's just not going to be the most optimal approach, even though I hate that damn word.
Yeah, I would really like to see more case studies on that one, the true difference between these kind of phases and the length of a contest prep. Because yes, we have case studies of longer preps. Yes, we have case studies of shorter preps, but they are, such as protein studies most of the time, not really equal. You can't really compare them to another, right? It is definitely hard to compare these two to another, but I think you can kind of make them as similar as possible to then compare them to another and maybe take your draws out of it. And I know that many people bring up the argument about muscle retention, that a shorter prep is probably better for muscle retention. That may be the case. I'm not entirely convinced about that. And that is simply due to the fact that, yes, it is. You will probably not feel as sluggish. But the thing is, what we mentioned the last time already, the comparison, what we are having right now, is most of the time that the people started at the same position, but they compared the longer prep with the shorter prep, but they started at the same body weight, right? And of course, you are going to lose a little bit more lean body mass tissue when you need to push it harder in only 16 weeks, but you have to lose the same amount of weight compared to a 40-week prep where you need to lose the same amount of weight. Of course, you can take it so much easier. And I mean, there are studies over studies to show that rapid fat loss can lead to lean body mass loss. But also we have studies on the other hand, which are of course not on bodybuilders, that show that you actually could easily gain something, right? But lean body mass tissue is not equaling muscle tissue, that's for sure. But I think that when you do it intelligently and you're putting yourself in a proper spot before that, I think that the muscle loss will probably be the same. When, if not even a little bit better. And I mean, when we take a look at the comparison, because it's kind of the same when you compare a normal cut, I call them now a normal cut, with a rapid fat loss approach, there are pros and cons to both of them. When you take a look at Gen Pop, when they're doing that, but you can always make the argument of, yeah, you are losing stuff in a shorter period of time, but you are also quicker back on track than a conservative cut where you are losing more slowly. And I think that, I don't know, I would like to see more data on that as well, even though it might only be anecdotal data from a couple of people, but I would rather like to see data which is kind of equal to another, where the people aren't starting with the same body weight, but they are a different time length, because that is not equal.
No. Because, yeah, it's obvious if you've got to lose more fat in a shorter period of time, you're going to have to push more aggressively and you're probably going to end up losing muscle because of that. So, it'd be better to have someone who's 30 pounds over stage weight starting 30 weeks out, and then someone who's, 15 pounds over stage weight and they're 20 weeks out or something.
Like percentage wise, yeah. When you're saying, okay, we are aiming to lose 0.5 to up to 1% of body weight loss per week, and then calculating it backwards, and then have these subjects who are then at that giving weight.
Yeah, I think the key is just losing an appropriate rate of pace for your body fat percentage. And yeah, it's whether or not having that period of time where you can set. I just can't see the downside to having a period of time where you get lean, hold yourself as lean, recover, and then attack. I just think that just makes good sense. And I guess it's the diet before the diet, as 3DMJ would call it, and it's kind of that maintenance phase or resensitization phase, as RP would call it, and it would be the primer phase for us.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's all I have to say on that one as well. I mean, we could go into the small nitty details, but I think that's too much to talk about. And maybe it's something that the people want to consider if they're considering a contest prep, to not just do an extended cutting phase or a rapid fat loss kind of approach, but more so in the middle ground. Do the diet before the diet, let the fatigue and stress alleviate, and then push for the digging phase. And then maybe it turns out that it was successful, and maybe not. I mean, you never know.
No, 100%. I think that was a good little segment we've done there. It's 35 minutes long. So we can hold. If people do have questions on that, let us know. And hopefully we kind of made the case for the shorter prep understood, in that I think, the misunderstanding is starting at an appropriate level of leanness and losing at an appropriate rate, and starting from a place of strength and individualizing it to settling set points is probably a good idea.
And what I would like to add on that one is, if I'm or Steve is missing anything on that bigger picture, then let us know in the comment section below, because I mean, we are humans, we have our theories, we have our observation, right? And it could be that we are missing something, that the contest prep that is longer maybe serves more benefits than that the shorter prep, and we aren't really considering that as well. So let us know if we are missing anything out on that, and if not, then go fuck yourself, bitches. And no.
Definitely always good to be challenged, and we might have not explained it how we meant it to be explained in some areas. So if there are any kind of confusing elements, then let us know. Otherwise, take care, and we'll catch you soon. And also, if you are interested in kind of bodybuilding, periodization, that sort of thing, the advanced hypertrophy seminar videos are going to be available. And by the time this goes live, there'll still be pre-order. So they'll still be the cheapest price you can possibly get them, which is awesome. If you did attend the seminar, you have a discount. Check your emails. If you didn't attend the seminar, this is still going to be the cheapest price you're ever going to get it. So definitely get on it. The video is being edited by Tom Moore, if he watches this, which I'm not sure if he does watch these or not, but it'd be great if he does. And he's a great editor, so that we can
if he does, I only want to say that he could fuck himself as well. The other. So
kindly go fuck yourself, Tom, and we will catch you guys soon.
Bye.